Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Green Mortgage Masterclass series. This series will cover a wide range of topics within the green finance space and is an opportunity for advisors who want to grow their knowledge and expertise on the evolving green mortgage market. This area of the market is only set to grow, with recent figures from the Green Finance Institute showing that the number of green mortgages in this green mortgages has grown to over 90 in the space of a few years. Lenders are also looking at their criteria and incentives like cashback, as well as partnering with third-party retrofit providers to increasingly cater for this market. New build is also an area of focus for many lenders, with some increasing their loan to values or changing their criteria as they look to diversify their portfolios as well. We are starting off with a cracker, if you would pardon the festive pun, with Barclays doing a deep dive into how it is supporting customers electrifying their own homes and their plans for the new build sector. My name is Anna Sagar, Deputy Editor for Mortgage Solutions, and I am joined by James Blessley, Commercial and Product Director for Mortgages at Barclays UK. Welcome, James.
Thanks, Anna, and thanks for having me along this morning. As you said, my name's James Blessley. I'm Product and Commercial Director for Barclays Mortgages, which means I have the responsibility for all of our Barclays branded mortgage residential buy-to-let offerings, and including our sustainable finance agenda. So I was going to talk today a little bit about how we see the opportunity in sustainable finance and sustainable homes and the areas of focus that Barclays have, and how we're thinking and developing our product offering for those. So as you can see on this screen, really there are two kind of areas of opportunity that we're focused on. Firstly, it's how we help customers electrify their existing homes. Electrification enables homeowners to benefit from the energy transition and reduce the cost of their energy through the adoption of clean tech in their houses. And so that's a really important area to help customers with and to help the industry with. And then the second area is around supporting the new build market. So helping this big house building agenda. Those new houses, by definition, tend to be more kind of energy efficient than the existing stock. And there's a lot of change in that sector. So that's an area that we're really focused on and that we'll kind of touch on as we go through. If we can just go to the next slide, if that's possible. So we're going to start by looking at electrification and some of the trends and the opportunities within that. Probably the first thing to say is that the future of the home, as it says on the slide, is clean tech enabled. What do we mean by clean tech? Well, a house that's got a heat pump, solar panels, has battery storage, and potentially electric vehicles used as battery storage as well for no gas connection, and then various kind of heat recovery, smart home as well, smart home hub that helps manage the technology overall. So that's what we mean by a clean tech enabled home. What we know as well is that there's a big trend in terms of growth of and there are many tailwinds that are benefiting that, but you can see there's been a 45% compound annual growth rate on installations between 2020 and 2023. But the key thing is that we're going to have to really accelerate that in order to hit the targets that the government have, so that's a really important kind of area of focus and for homeowners and for the government, is how do we support that electrification. The key thing, if we can go to the next slide, is what we know about kind of adoption and what's going to help adoption is customers' financial well-being. That's what we kind of see within research across many different countries, and kind of how customers adopt. We know that the financial kind of case for electrification has got to be good for customers to really adopt it. And if we go to the next slide, the good news is that is the case now. So we can see that electrification reduces running costs, and it can lead to an uplift in property value. So you can see some of the stats on this slide. Clean tech enabled homes reduce energy bills by 40 to 100%. It can also lead to, when you compare a new build property with clean tech enabled home versus a non-clean tech enabled new build, the estimates are that over a 20 to 25 year period, you will save £8,000 to £18,500. So that there is a business case there versus gas boilers. And the other thing I think that people often think about when thinking about electrification and the kind of the barriers to customers taking it on is the upheaval, particularly if outside of new build context. If you think about retrofit, I think customers, believe that there will be an upheaval, that it will cause disruption, and that that kind of puts customers off. But what we know is when we look at the outcomes from customers who have been through that process, over 80% of people are satisfied with the heat pump that they've installed. And so kind of I think the more that the other thing probably to say is as this grows, the adoption and the kind of customers talking to one another, and the benefits of the message will spread. And I think brokers have got a really important part to play in that as we look forward as well. So the customers are incentivized by the financial benefits. We know that customers are starting to see some of those. We know that some of the upheaval that maybe historically, we can see that customers who've been through the process are satisfied with that process and the outcomes. The other thing is as well now that actually with new innovative offerings in the market, you see the Octopus Energy one on screen. Customers are able, with clean tech, to actually achieve zero bills on their energy consumption. Now, that as well, like the next slide, just illustrates, kind of the fact that this isn't just, kind of an idea that actually, we have seen periods in the last year where customers really are genuinely getting paid to consume, take electricity off the grid, and that's the importance of having your batteries and electric vehicles in that clean tech enabled home. So it's the financial benefits are real, and it's that's kind of going to be a key piece for electrification and the adoption of this technology across the market. So in terms of how Barclays are thinking, if that's the kind of the opportunity and the benefit to customers, the next slide I'll talk about how Barclays is supporting customers with electrification. So the first key area to call out is our Greener Home Rewards product, where customers who install some of the clean tech I mentioned above are eligible for the Greener Home Reward, which means customers can receive up to £2,000. I think it'll be up to £1,000 as of January as cashback to help them with those costs. So that's a really key part of how we're supporting customers. We've seen demand for that really grow this year, significantly higher demand this year than we've seen historically, and we're expecting that to continue. And probably the other thing to say is we've got lots of information on our website as well around the grants and some of the government schemes that are available to customers. So taking Greener Home Rewards in combination with some of those schemes that customers may be eligible for can really help with the adoption costs for some of the clean tech pieces. We're constantly looking and reviewing our partnerships. So you can see some of the ones that are current or historic on the screen. But I think it's clearly electrification. Mortgage providers, mortgage brokers have a role, but it's a complex ecosystem, including energy providers, installers, fitters, etc. So partnerships are another really key area of focus for us. And for example, we've got a partnership with British Gas looking at assessments of your home and kind of how you can make your home more energy efficient. So there's key. That will be a key focus. It's already been a part of our strategy. I think will continue to be a part of our strategy as we look forward to how we understand what's going on, how Barclays can play a role to support customers and brokers with electrification. And then finally is a product focus. So in terms of this, the product that we kind of referenced on screen is our personal loans. We have a personal loan offering to help customers make these enhancements, because clearly financing is part of the solution to help customers with electrification. And I think that will be an ongoing focus as well for kind of that. It's an unsecured loan, but potentially product development will be a key focus on how we help customers retrofit for our mortgage areas as well. So I think that probably covers electrification. It's a big area. Customers will can really benefit in terms of their running energy efficiency costs. It's obviously the right thing to do as well as we look to achieve net zero. So that's a big area of focus for Barclays. But if we now move on to look at new build, so the new build market is evolving at pace, as you can see from the screen. One of the kind of the real areas of benefits, I think, that from a new build perspective as a lender is there's a lot of focus around building more homes. Clearly, that's a focus for the government. I think there was the pledge to build 1.5 million homes as part of their kind of manifesto that is being taken through into action. A lot of focus on the home building agenda. And so the expectation is growth in the new build market over time. So that's an area why we are interested in, and customers are likely to need support on that. The other kind of key aspect to how the market is evolving is not just the number of homes that are being built, but also the future home standard and some of the regulatory requirements around new build. So I think we're still waiting for the exact kind of publication, but what we know is there's been a lot of partnership between builders and government and the industry at large to kind of understand what the future home standard is likely to mean. And we're already the builders are already kind of moving towards that kind of so that will be maybe less of a kind of a big cliff edge kind of change than it would otherwise be. So lots of partnership and potentially opportunities within that space. And then the final kind of piece around the market evolution is that there's a lot of innovation happening. So, for example, and policy as part of that. So the 95% loan to value new build, we've increased our maximum LTV there earlier on this year. I think others have done the same. Likewise, there's innovation in terms of partnerships and equity loans. So there's the Reside equity loan scheme that Barclays is kind of part of or accepts. So again, extending the opportunity to own homes. So that innovation space makes it a really interesting area. Again, if I just talk a bit about what Barclays is doing to support or to kind of know how we're thinking about that. The first thing probably say is the new build market is an area that we really like. We put a lot of focus on that this year. Already referenced policy development. But we've also now got a dedicated ring-fenced new build underwriting team. That's kind of an area, and these then in the product space, we also offer our greener mortgage, which offers a discount to customers for A and B rated properties. So there's a package of measures that we are taking to improve our offering. The really good news is that we're seeing that paid dividends in terms of the progress we're seeing. So we've grown our market share year on year, and it's an area that we will want to target being a market leader in the new build market, and that's kind of really influencing our thinking for our plans ahead as well, where again, there'll probably be a continuation of some of the themes. So more partnerships, targeted customer engagement, and kind of policy development, and an ongoing focus with our service model as well. So making sure that we're kind of giving the really good service to brokers and customers who are going through the new build purchase process. So that's the kind of the as I say, new build is a growing market. There's lots of kind of trends that are influencing that in terms of the future home standard. Providers are bringing innovation into that space, and it's an area that Barclays has already undertaken a number of policy and product service developments, and that is something that we're looking to continue into next year. So I think one of the other things I just thought it might be worth just covering as well, given the topic of Masterclass and the opportunity, and given the audience, is what do we think that means for brokers, and the role that you play in supporting clients. And I think probably one of the key messages I would say, brokers are a huge part of the market. 80%, over 80%, I think, of mortgage originations happen via the broker channel, and therefore, brokers are a really trusted partner for customers as they move through their home buying, kind of remortgaging process. And so, as we look at the sustainable homes agenda, I think brokers have got a key role to play, probably in a couple of different areas. One would be the being aware and helping customers understand the products, the services that are available to them, some of the considerations they might need to be thinking through. Flood risk is an area we haven't particularly covered today, but I think there's another kind of important area in this sustainability space. So helping customers understand, the electrification agenda, what new build properties, how they might compare. So that advice role and kind of helping make customers be aware is one element. I think the other element would be around the role that you play. You see an awful lot of, you're the experts on how customers are experiencing it, what's going right with lenders' offerings, what we can learn, when there might be opportunities. So making sure that the feedback and any pain points, etc., are kind of highlighted via BDMs. I think that's a really important point as well, because it's an important journey we're on with the sustainable homes agenda. It's an evolving journey, and so the more that we understand what's working well and where areas of opportunity are, it will be really important. So that would be kind of the thing I'd probably say in terms of the broker's role before, and maybe if we close out for some questions, just to see if we've got any coming through.
Yep. Thanks so much for that, James. There's a real, I think it was some key takeaways for me is obviously the key role of the broker that you just finished off with, but also but I think also for me it was that you can use, the greener home reward with grants and with other things. And I think sometimes there's a bit of not confusion exactly, but there's sometimes a bit of a kind of like, how can we use these products together? But what you just finished off with kind of segues really nicely into what one of the questions is kind of like, what role will brokers play in the electrification of housing or green mortgages? Do you think there needs to be more education or more awareness of certain products, or what I know you kind of mentioned that it's the customer awareness and the kind of feeding back to lenders, but do you think that there needs to be a bit more education on this or resources available?
So I think obviously it's always good to get feedback in terms of we we have a dedicated like new build team, dedicated kind of one of our BDMs is kind of focused purely on new build space. And we do have kind of resources available via kind of website, both intermediary and direct to consumer. So I think there's a role that lenders have to play in kind of making it clear what our offerings are, what customers need to be, what our perspective and our research tells us customers need to be considering. But ultimately, as I kind of touched on, 80% plus of mortgage originations come via the broker channel, and therefore I do think mortgage brokers are an incredibly important and trusted partner for customers moving through that process. And so I think the role brokers play, hopefully it's an interesting area and people want to be interested anyway, because it's clearly a really important societal issue, climate change. So there's hopefully people can be aware anyway. But I think definitely educating, being aware of the products and offerings that we have, each lender has, and then helping customers be aware of that. And I think that other point I made about the feedback. I mean, I know that we always try our best to get things right, first time, and to make sure that we are prioritising customer outcomes and service for brokers. But there's always more that we can do to improve. So that kind of that feedback loop, I think, is really important as well.
Yeah, I think even just looking at, say a few years ago, there weren't that many green mortgage products on the scene, and now there's over 90. And even just looking at the kind of products, I think the product innovation, it's evolving. Like it's more of a, we just hosted up the Green Mortgage Summit, and then it was talking about, rather than a one size fits all, okay, you have an EPC rating of A or B, therefore you can get this product. I think there's a lot more variety of products out there, I think, and I think there's a kind of, and I think that is partially due to brokers kind of feeling back, being like, hey, actually I have these customers that maybe want to do something like this, but they don't fit into this bucket. And so I think that product innovation will continue. And I think there are, obviously you mentioned the customer satisfaction, over 80% of customers who've made those kinds of changes that you mentioned, were satisfied with it. But do you think that there's kind of, how do you overcome, I think the key barrier that you mentioned was talking about perceived cost and upheaval or kind of disruption. So are there any other kind of barriers to the uptake of green mortgages, and how can those kind of be overcome? Like, how do you overcome that initial kind of assumption that, it's going to be too expensive and it's going to cause me too much disruption?
So I think there is something about, as adoption increases, this will become less of a niche kind of area. I think historically it probably was kind of regarded as more, but I think inevitably as you know more people who have solar panels, who have a heat pump, and who have been through that process and tell you about it, I think there's inevitability as you saw the adoption as that increases. I think the hope is that it accelerates because people talk about the benefits, and it's not something you have to kind of go and seek out on a lender's website, or when a broker talks to you. It's something that you'll be hearing in your everyday life. So I think there's a general kind of perception and awareness in the population at large. Just we're all social creatures, aren't we? Kind of hearing from people who have been through it. So I think that will be that adoption kind of curve is probably a really important piece. I think I think probably there's a bit as well about how do we. There's you can tell that there's been quite a bit of focus on new build for things like green mortgage products. How do we expand out into more? I mean, the numbers of products are growing, but a greater offering for things like remortgage, more kind of retrofit type of products, I think is kind of one of those pieces again that will grow just as demand grows naturally. I think, but those are kind of pieces. I think the other thing as well, I mean, there's various, it's maybe not a barrier for adoption, but maybe kind of more in the innovation space. But clearly, as we are seeing customers in the real world get benefits from electrification, but the benefits they get from a cost saving perspective are brilliant for the individuals, but potentially as a mortgage industry, one of the interesting things there is, as we get more data, does that allow us to think about affordability on different areas? Can you, because we've got the scale of the data, can we then place more reliance on the fact that we know that there's through different cycles of economy, weather, what have you, climate, that there's a sustainable basis on which to kind of maybe think about how we factor that into affordability as well. So I think there's kind of lots of interesting areas, both in terms of barriers, but also opportunities.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think what you were mentioning about zero bills households, or even energy suppliers, actually, if you've got the battery storage, actually paying you to kind of like to store energy, that could be, especially with there's a lot of discussions around rising bills and cost of living crisis and all that kind of stuff. I think that could actually, and I think there has been kind of a correlation, I guess, between, as you kind of mentioned, maybe cost of living and then interest in like that kind of energy efficiency, because people are just like, actually this will save me money, or this is kind of, I think the affordability point's really interesting, of just that's something I hadn't thought about, but it's something definitely to keep an eye on. And that kind of segues quite nicely into my next question, which is about what do you think the future green mortgage will look like, and kind of what are product innovations you'd like to see. So I suppose the affordability point is one, maybe looking at if it is a zero bills household, or if you do have these energy efficiency, like a heat pump or other things in place, your bills are going to be lower, or you're going to be, so I suppose, are there any other kind of areas that you'd like, and I think you also mentioned more on the remortgage and the retrofit side, would you say that, is there anything else you'd like to add to that, or anything you want to expand on in that?
I mean, I think so. I think those are like kind of areas like the data, and like how do you think about the differences that these customers are experiencing who have got clean tech enabled homes. Is there something different that you can, that their needs are different, so do we need to develop our products and policies maybe slightly differently for them? I think that's definitely an area of interest and exploration as we go forward. I mean, it's an interesting question what the future of a green mortgage looks like, because I mean, if you look longer term forward, you hope that this becomes like the clean tech enabled house becomes so common that actually you almost stop talking about green mortgages, and this just becomes kind of like a really mainstream feature of the market, rather than it being like a separate piece. I think it's we're not going to get there overnight anytime soon. I think it's right that it's got a dedicated focus, but I think if you look really far forward, like that would hopefully be the case, because it means that we're hitting the ambitions and the targets that we as the UK have set in terms of net zero, and clearly housing is a major part of that. So I think you look longer term, and it's that piece about green mortgages being very much like, it's so mainstream that it's not a green mortgage, it's just a mortgage, and like how we think about the needs, and are very mainstream. So I think that's longer term, but I think in the shorter term it probably is that product policy expansion. Are there kind of either pieces on affordability? We referenced earlier on that we've increased our maximum LTV on new build to 95%. That's for houses. But there are potentially things around flats and things like that we need to look at as well. I think there are potentially as well, like kind of maximum loan sizes at various LTV bands. So there's a lot of kind of like policy detail that we can look at as an industry, and as Barclays, that's on the agenda. The affordability piece, I think, is a really interesting, innovative kind of area. And then, as I say, longer term, it's about this becomes mainstream, and therefore you probably don't think about green as like such a segment or product kind of classification so much.
Yeah, I think it's because when we had our Green Mortgage Summit a few weeks ago, and one of the obviously the Green Finance Institute does their own qualification about green mortgages, and there were some discussions there about actually should, to your point of like green should just be mainstream. There were some discussions at that event of just like actually should it just be included in your standard CMAP or that kind of thing, which I thought was interesting, to kind of think about actually should green just become embedded in your, so every mortgage advisor has a little bit of knowledge of like certain things. But kind of, I think actually now that we're coming to the end of the year, and I think it does lead you to kind of reflect on, the year that's gone and the year that's coming up. And I suppose, do you, if you were looking ahead to 2026, what do you think the kind of key, I suppose, just kind of zooming out to the mortgage market more widely, what are your expectations or trends that brokers should be keeping an eye out for, or, or maybe challenges that they should also be mindful of?
Yeah. I mean, big question.
Yes.
And then what I'd say is the mortgage market, and then I think it's pretty rare that I meet people in the industry who don't absolutely love it. The pace, the importance it has for our customers, the importance for like society. It's such a. I also feel very privileged to work in mortgages. And to be honest, I think by next year, it's been a year of like lots of change. Clearly, new rules from or kind of clarifications on rules from FCA. There's been quite a lot on the LTI. I mean, I think what do we think about looking towards next year? I think the market has been bigger this year than for many a year recently. We're expecting it probably to be slightly bigger again even next year, which I think is kind of positive, and is a sign of confidence in the purchase market. I think the other kind of probably trend that will be quite prevalent next year is remortgages. Just looking at the maturity data, there's significant growth in fixed rate maturities coming up, so I think remortgaging, product transfer kind of market is going to be a real focus, and we'll see that as I say, a significant growth there year on year. I think they're looking at just some of the wider trends in terms of the market. I mean, I think tomorrow we've got the Bank of England base rate decision, so we'll see what comes of that. But kind of the potentially of kind of a view of easing of kind of bank rate further, that will probably play a bit of a part, and then that will kind of come into the remortgage space as well. I think otherwise it's kind of topical, but I know the FCA have released their roadmap off the back of the discussion paper earlier this week. So I think the theme and the trend this year of working very closely across the industry with the regulators and government to kind of think about how do we serve specific customer groups, help them buy homes, help them finance homes, the later life space as well. How do you start thinking about mortgages and property equity and retirement? I think these are all like being big themes that have kind of emerged this year that I think they won't necessarily there will be a lot of discussion, and I think a lot of like consultation on those, and so there will be themes for next year, but that will then start to kind of play through, I think, over the more medium term into offerings and kind of what the lenders kind of offer to the market, etc. So I think next year probably bigger market, probably a bit more kind of characterised by remortgaging, but purchase still being very much there and strong. Probably bit of kind of view on keep a very close eye on what's happening with base rate and what that means for mortgage rates, and then kind of a very important debate on kind of how the industry serves customer needs on a more medium term basis. So I think it's going to be a really I'm optimistic for next year as well. I think there's other interesting things happening just in the demographics of the UK around intergenerational wealth transfer and pieces. So I think it's going to carry on being I think I'm optimistic about the market and what we can do for customers. I think it's going to carry on being very interesting and lots of opportunity to develop, and as ever a need to kind of really keep on top of the news flow. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think I was chatting to someone and then they were just saying, well, 2023 was really difficult. 2024 was a year of recovery, and 2025 felt like we could actually kind of look ahead, and 2026 is going to be kind of building on that progress. So I kind of, definitely from hearing from different lenders and brokers and other mortgage industry people that just, the expectations for 2026 are more positive. And I think the expectations, some of the industry estimates I've seen for gross mortgage lending kind of range between about 300 billion to 320 billion, which is, so that's up on this year. And it's, again, like you said, purchase activity is still there, but remortgage and refinance is a really big element of that. And yeah, and so also with the FCA mortgage rule review, I mean, it's if anyone hasn't read it yet, I would recommend like casting your eye over it. We also have coverage on Mortgage Solutions. Obviously, we have a very easy to read roundup piece which has got all of our coverage in it. And so, but the key areas, like you said, were kind of later life lending, first time buyers and underserved segments, vulnerable customers, and innovation. And so there's some really interesting things that are going to happen in the first quarter of next year, like you mentioned, like the loan to income review, and there's some other consultations that they're also opening as well. So there's a lot of things, and I think actually the regulator seems to be kind of taking an approach of how, really examining the market and how it can grow and how it can, what are the kind of things not holding people back exactly, but just kind of what are the things that we can do to kind of amp up the market more. So I think we are almost nearing the end of the session. So I suppose I always ask this at the end of a masterclass, but if you wanted brokers to have some key takeaways from this session, what would they be, and where are some resources that you'd recommend that they go and kind of, if they wanted to upskill on this, where, I know you mentioned your lender page, but are there any other resources that you'd recommend?
So I think in terms of message, it's that the sustainable homes agenda is a massive agenda. It's got societal and kind of climate change benefits. It's something we have to address from that wider perspective, but also there are real benefits to customers to considering, their whether they can save money by electrification. As customers are thinking about purchase, kind of is a new build, kind of do they understand the choices of a new build, and kind of what that might give them. So I think it's an important agenda. Customers can benefit from it. And then I think probably the third key message for this audience would be, and brokers got a massive part to play as a really trusted advisor for their customers as they're moving through these their home buying or remortgaging process to make customers aware. I think in terms of resources, we kind of referenced the lender page. I think there are there's lots of kind of resources online. Kind of the sorry, I'm just going to try and so the Energy Saving Trust. Some of the energy companies as well, I think have got kind of pieces on kind of what they can do around the different tariffs that they can offer and all that good stuff. So I think online is a great resource, and also what I'd say is BDMs. I know we spend a lot of time. I've kind of referenced that we've got our dedicated kind of new build team as well, but kind of BDMs are always kind of good to talk to. And I think the other thing for me, probably the final key message I should but keep the feedback loop coming, because that really does help. It really helps us as a lender understand what's going well, where there might be opportunities, and we discuss. We kind of have regular time with our BDMs, and they're not shy in telling us what what the feedback coming back is either. So that would be another kind of key message. So yeah.
Right. Well, thanks so much, James. I think there was some really interesting takeaways from that presentation. I think for me, it's like obviously electrification the demand is just going to grow, and you can there's going to be more diverse lender offerings, and also there's government grants and other things, and actually just being that having an awareness of those kinds of things for your customers will be really vital going forward. And the new build space is definitely something that is going to grow, and it's going to be there is, so watch this space. There will be more innovation there. And for those who are wanting to look for more information, obviously these masterclasses are a really good resource, and they're going to be a couple more coming down the track, so keep an eye out for those. And I'd also say we've got now have a dedicated green page on Mortgage Solutions, which has blogs and rate updates and product innovations and analysis pieces and all things green all in one space. So if you do want to kind of have a little gander at what information is out there, then that's also a good resource. I'd also recommend Green Finance Institute, because they've just launched a retrofit hub, which has all the lender partnerships and who they've partnered with third-party providers. So it's good to see what who lenders are teaming up with and what they can provide. And they've also got their green mortgage hub as well, which tells you all the lenders and all their different products. So that's also a very good starting point as well. But thanks so much to James for taking the time, and thank you all for attending, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks.